Good to see you all. Very nice to see. So we are coming to the culmination of Upadesa Saram. These 30 verses that Bhagavan wrote in a very short period of time when Muruganar asked him to help him convey the message that young Shiva in the form of Dakshinamurti gave to those 4 ascetics who were the most learned of the learned, who had nothing else to learn from, who had attained all the ritualistic practices, who had absorbed every letter of every text that pointed towards spirituality. And yet they did not understand that the rituals do not bring you to that realization of the self. Rituals can only prepare you for the ultimate revelation of the truth, the self, the soul, the heaven, the nirvana. You don't need rituals for it. And Dakshinamurti revealed it to the four most learned ascetics. And those 4 are only being a representative or a representation of the masses. In the world, if 50% of the people follow religion, 99% of those 50% are only ritualistic. Only 1%, even of that small number, are actually focused on spirituality as to what is the mystery behind all these religions and all these religious practices or rituals. So here in verse number 30, which is again, like every other verse that he wrote, everything else he wrote, very pithy, terse, direct, and clear for those whose mind is clear. Otherwise, it is going to be obfuscated. It is going to remain clouded for the majority of the people. So here he says, ahama-petakaṁ, nija-vibhānakam, mahadidaṁ tapo ramaṇa vāgiyam. Look at the choice of words and look at the way he wraps it around. He says, ahama-petakaṁ. Aham is ego. The one who conquers the ego, he says, or when the ego is obscured, or ego is dwarfed, or ego is annihilated or mitigated. Annihilation is the ultimate stage of the ego to get to. For all of us, we need to completely crush our ego. He's saying, ahama-petakaṁ nija-vibhānakam. For those who would be able to crush their own ego and completely subside it, to him, the self will be revealed. Nija is the self. Nij is also the chitta, the human being that you and I are alive as. Unfortunately, confused enough not to know that we are the ultimate reality also. So he's saying, Chit nija-vibhānakam, that individual self who thinks he is individual, to him, the ultimate self, the over-pervading, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent self will be revealed. Nija-vibhānakam. Personally, it shall be revealed to him. Then he will not remain a personal mortal anymore. He will not remain, he will then become one with the ultimate, one that is whole. That is the only entity. That's the only reality. So ahama-petakaṁ, Peter, you join just a moment later. So ahama-petakaṁ, basically, Ramana, in the very first word of that last verse, is saying those who are able to control their ego, those who are able to ultimately annihilate their ego, to them, I, the self, shall reveal itself. Nothing else will come to his rescue. It will be from his own self that this self will be revealed. Mahadidaṁ tapa. Is there any other penance higher than this? Mahadidaṁ tapo. This is the greatest penance. Mahadidaṁ tapo Ramaṇa, these are the sayings of Ramana. And mind you, he never ever took credit for writing anything. He never said, I wrote this. So even this last verse, where it says, these are Ramana's sayings, was not written by him. This last verse, he only wrote 29 verses. Muruganar added this last verse. Ramana Vāgiyam is Muruganar's edition. That this is the revelation, or these are the sayings of Ramana. So, ahama-petakaṁ, nija-vibhānakam, mahadidaṁ, tapo, Ramana Vāgiyam. Now, we must focus on the word penance. And it's important that we focus, because positive, spiritual, tenacious upliftment. That's what penance actually is. It's a positive endeavor to purify my weaknesses in a physical way. And that's why going into the forest and living alone is sort of a penance. Speaking the truth always about myself is a great penance. Always checking myself while talking to my relatives, my friends, in my social conversations, I exaggerate things. I position myself as the Mr. Perfect. And catching myself and saying, no, I shouldn't have done that. In my own meditation is penance. And next time, not making those kinds of those statements is the practice of that penance. But here, and please, between us, let's pay full attention to this particular part. Bhagavan is saying, what is penance? He is not saying penance is what you all think penance is. He is dispelling the doubt on the word penance. I did more contemplation, more focus more on this word penance after my dialogue with the devotee. And this is what Bhagavan has said here, that do not be mistaken. Penance is not that you all know it to be. Penance is, and I wrote some notes here, there are two aspects that Ramana is trying to explain to us. The two aspects of penance. One is dropping the ego. Dropping the ego is the foremost crutch, or the pivotal significance of dispelling or crushing my ego is one of the main stay of revelation. So he's saying tapas is that in which you annihilate your ego, and when you do that, that which will reveal itself as the self is the ultimate step of your penance. Ahama-petakaṁ, nija-vibhānakam. So he's saying penance is nothing else but this. It is bringing back the whole story of Muruganar, his devotee, Tamil scholar, coming to him and saying, can you help me with what these ascetics were then told by the younger form of Shiva known as Dakshinamurti, who doesn't believe in rituals. That's why he faces the south, defying the very practice of spiritual tenets. Can you help me? And that's why in the last verse, he's bringing it back to that is not tapas. Ritualistic practice is good. It's a step towards tapas. It's not the ultimate tapas. So all those ritualistic practices are only a tool, is only a crutch for us to get to the ultimate stage. And this is the way the ultimate reality is, the ultimate penance. And therefore the word penance is not in negative connotation. And the other thing in my dialogue with our friend here was that all the other devotees who lived during Bhagavan's time, especially the ones who came from Christian backgrounds, like Major Alan Chadwick, S.S. Cohen, who didn't come from Christian background, but from Jewish background, where also the meaning of penance is a little convoluted. or people who are Buddhists. They practice very, very stern and arduous penance by starving or by hanging upside down and things like that, or going underground, burying themselves. And even Hindu religious pandas in Rishikesh and Haridwar, they do that all the time. And they do attain some powers. They do get beyond a certain level. But we are talking, Ramana was only interested in us getting to the final point. That's why he always used to challenge people. Who is asking the question? Don't ask me this question, to find out who is asking the question. And that was a direct pointing towards who the self in this voice is. Who is that which is breathing in this body, which is not you? I hope this made some sense. Any questions on this verse or penance or anything else you want to add? So here, remember that word penance is dispelled as not something which has any physicality attached to it. Hear about it. And thanks to that dialogue that came up just a couple of days back.
Bandhu?
Yes.
I have a question. Maybe it's a couple of questions.
Sure.
I think I know what ego is, but I'm like, is ego similar, is equivalent to the pride? And if we are talking so much about ego, does ego have any place in life at all? If I didn't have ego, how do I try to excel in whatever I'm taking till I become get on the path of realization and the other non-family kind of things?
Okay, a very good question, and I think you know the answer yourself, Venkat. The ego, or the egotistical functioning of this body, eating, providing for my family, working, and not walking away from those responsibilities, is also part of the karma that this body, because of its prarabdha, is destined to go through. So giving it up prematurely or trying to force that kind of forcing to stop those kinds of activities would not be conducive to my actual progress. So the ego that you're talking about is the egotistical functioning of me, which is making me limited. And I'm not putting faith in the ultimate reality, in the ultimate existence, that if I were to depend only on that, then everything shall be provided to me also, just as it is provided to every other living entity other than human beings. Are you seeing the point? We are trying to go beyond this egotistical living of thinking I'm doing everything. That is the ego. That I'm the educated man, I'm providing for my family, I have to go through this, I have to marry my children. All that is ego, and no doubt up until the point I really have the calling, unless I have the maturity to take the final plunge, and I have the destiny, if I'm destined to be born with that level of understanding, I would not be pursuing this worldly life. I would not be worried about the tenets of my worldly existence if I were to put my faith. Here are two examples to really elucidate on that a little further. Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi did not touch money from the day on 1st September 1896 when he reached Arunachala, correct? He threw the money, whatever little change was left, he had taken 2 rupees and 75 paisa. That's like $2.75 for his fare. What you're thinking, what your question is still about the world, about us living, and we are trying to get to the higher understanding of getting beyond this existential necessity that we are all encumbered with,
And one more thing, I appreciate your sincerity and honesty in trying to fathom this, but it's not that one fine day you'll be able to drop the ego. The way you paraphrase it, and maybe that's not where you think, but that's the way you're paraphrasing that. But my ego is necessary. So nobody's saying that you will be able to drop the ego very next day. It's not like a bank account you can go and close. It is part of your life. It's your prarabdha. So once you begin the sincere effort of watching the ego, as Bhagavan Ramana would say, watching our thoughts is watching my ego. If you keep watching your ego as to I'm the one who is thinking that this is necessary, that is necessary, that itself is an egotistical thought. And it is not a switch that I have that I'll control and drop the ego and then start on the path of self-realization. The path of self-realization is the beginning of the path of self-realization is satsangs like this. To ponder over this, to think about it, and to begin to unravel to myself that whatever I'm thinking is based on my ego, my objects.
Thank you, Bandhu.
I tried my best. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you. We all learn from each other. Okay, everybody. Arunachala. Arunachala. We'll see you again soon.